It's great to, and we are recording. Thank you, Neri. Let me just, all the AI wants to record too. So we're recording. We'll post it, the recording on our YouTube channel, um, where we have all the 9:30 calls that are recorded. So good morning as folks are joining. If you want to add in the chat your name and organization and maybe where you're zooming from. And so Chairman Gordon, welcome. We're so glad to have you with us. And our first question for all 9:30 callers is for you to tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be in your current role.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you everybody uh, for being here. And as you're joining in, thank you for joining in. Um, so I am State Representative Ken Gordon, and I am the House Chair of the Joint Committee on Education. I've been a state rep for 12 years. I started was first sworn in January 2nd of 2013, so I think that's about right mathematically. Um, I am by profession, I'm an employment discrimination lawyer. Um, and I ran for this position as basically with an emphasis on civil rights. I filed the bill that became the paid family and medical leave law in 2000 for the first time, I think in 2000, and I think it was 14. Might have been 16, but it became law in 2018. We fought hard for that. It was a big lift. Um, what we were able to do was work with legislators from around the country. It was during the Obama administration, and he called legislators in from 4 or 5 different states who he thought had a chance of passing this or learning from others who could pass it. And it turned out that in 18, Massachusetts and the state of Washington were the two states that were able to get it passed into law. And as you probably know, we started paying benefits in 2020. So in 2019, the next session, when that bill was comfortably a matter of law. I was working with the Raise Up Coalition as the outside advocacy group to get that passed. And Deb Fastino, who may be a friend to this group, she's with the Coalition for Social Justice, called and said, well, why stop now? We want to move on to the next step. Um, she had worked on earned sick time she was working on that as I joined the legislature. And we talked about a few things, and I basically said, well, we've done we've given some help to new families for 12 weeks after the birth or adoption of a child. But after 12 weeks, there's a cliff. And unless someone has a place, a family member, or the means to afford any access to get to a well, at that point, it would be early child care. And so, excuse me, at 2.7, it would be preschool. Um, there's no way to accomplish that. So we've we've solved the problem for 12 weeks, but we haven't addressed the problem until kindergarten and then beyond kindergarten for many families and for many students of special needs. So we got to work on what became the Common Start bill. I filed that bill. I partnered with Rep. Adrian Madaro from East Boston because I wanted to have, I'm a suburban rep. I represent Bedford, Burlington, and parts of Lexington. He's an urban rep. He represents East Boston. They have they have similarities in the problem of accessing preschool and early child care, but there are also differences. And we recognize that to some families, the problem is there's just no access at all. To some families, like mine, as a practicing lawyer, my wife was working in an office, and the cash that she brought home, her after-tax income, was equal to childcare. It was so expensive
Right.
for us that it really made no sense for her to give up the time with our new son, uh, just for essentially what turned out to be my healthcare premiums. And as it turned out, and I'm sorry, I have a cold, so I've got
I'm
to
so
get
sorry to hear
really
that.
quicker on the mute button when I cough. Um, but when I talked about this bill, I talked about it among others to business owners, small business owners, people who would consider themselves conservatives and wouldn't be those who would, for example, be inclined to vote for someone like me. But when I explained to them this program of Common Start, of accessing early child care and preschool, they came right around. And they said, first of all, they tell me their own personal story, similar to
Right.
mine, because they're a business owner. They wouldn't have anywhere else to fund their health care. So many of them got health care through their spouse or partner. Um, and many of them said that they were looking, we have a labor shortage. Excuse me, that's how I caught
Well
up.
done.
Um, and they told me stories about
Right.
people, including their own customers, who said they would be willing to work there during the day, but they had willing to work there, but they had no one to care for their preschool children, and that this would be a good idea that they could support, even though they knew it would cost them some money.
Right.
So I think that that through the budget last session, we were able to implement about 80% of what turned out to be Common Start. We've got some work to do to address the family portion, but we provided some assistance through the budget.
Right. And when you think about kind of your earlier days, what made you run for office? Did you have my God, opponent? Hello, good morning. Did you have an opponent? Were you involved in politics before you ran for state rep?
I was not involved with politics at all. I hadn't run for any office since student council, and
Hmm.
from my gray hair, you'll see that was a while ago. I had no intention of running, but um, there was an opening. It was well, my predecessor had done a good job, but he decided not to run. Um, I don't know that there were many in my district who were prepared for that, who had been preparing
Yep.
to replace him because we expected he would be there for a while. Uh, and I decided to run because I understood being a discrimination lawyer, how important our statutes are, how important the decisions that we make in the legislature are to helping people in Massachusetts. It's a responsible job. And sometimes, and I'm not saying this, and so I was running against two Democrats and a Republican, and I don't mean this personally to any of them, but sometimes people run because the idea of winning an election sounds kind of interesting,
Right.
but they're unaware of what they would do if they actually won. They'd be able to talk about things, but actually having a plan and how to implement that plan um, is different. If I was to have won, and I frankly was surprised that I did because I had no political experience and I came from a small town in my district, but I wanted to try. Um, and if I did win, then at least I would know what to do with the position, and I would understand how responsible understand the responsibilities of that position. And so
Right.
I was able to, I think, make use of that. So I was the chair of. I told you what I did with my personal legislation, but the speaker appointed me chair of a committee called Public Service when he
Yep.
became chair, that oversees pensions for public employees, including teachers. And I did that for 4 years, and then this session he appointed me chair of education.
And so as you came into, so you've had this experience being a rep, you've had this experience kind of passing these incredibly big bills in Massachusetts. And now this session, which started in January, you were appointed chair of the Committee on Education. And we know that Senator Lewis on the Senate side kind of remained the chair. You came in as a new chair. I know that some of the members of your team are here as well. But can you talk a little bit about kind of what did you do when you kind of came into that new position? What's your strategy?
Well, the first of all is to Senator Lewis. He was the Senate. Well, the Senate president on paid family and medical leave. The Senate president was the Senate sponsor of that bill.
Right,
But as the Senate president, she had to sort of step back a little bit. She was the
right,
Senate president. So Senator Lewis took a very active role in paid family and medical leave, and we became sort of de facto partners in strategizing. And he was also the Senate uh, lead in Common Start.
right.
So missed it that time. Excuse me. So coincidentally, we've been working together for quite some time on our personal legislation. So working with
Yep,
him as co-chair is really an easy transition. And so one of the first things we did was we just got together to talk about the things that the committee has been working on and taking stock of that. And then when I was chair of public service last session, I think I think to explain how I got appointed to this chair, we looked at two bills in particular, two policy issues in particular. One being our civil service laws, and the other being the different way the distinctions that we provide to police officers who are injured in a violent act in the line of duty, as opposed to those who retire with a disability for a nonviolent reason. And for decades, we had been kind of I don't know what the word is, but we at least did not solve those problems.
Hmm.
Um, and it was frustrating our municipalities. And we were able last session to pass legislation to solve both of those, to put programs in place both ways. So, looking at this committee, there are certainly challenges that we face with respect to public education, to preschool education, the funding needs, and those challenges are magnified and multiplied by what's going on the federal side.
Right.
But I think I was put here because I'm not going to shy away from a problem. They need solutions, and we need to make some hard decisions.
And
Because
then when you,
sometimes,
oh,
well, the
and I,
last thing is sometimes a solution doesn't, it means that some people have to sort of compromise. Uh,
right,
and they look at a solution because not everything is the way that any one person would solve a problem.
right. That's good advice. And so, especially when you think about kind of early childhood, starting at birth, the system is very different than the K to 12 system. We know that parents are paying most of the expenses. We know rely on the federal government for a lot of our funding. So, when you think about kind of coming into the committee, we've been thinking also about like, how do we best educate legislators about the difference. We've had so many people really get like into the nitty-gritty about the funding streams, how it works, because so many of the challenges in our day-to-day work are because the system wasn't quite designed to meet all the needs that we have. When you think about how the system has evolved over the last 5 years, 20 years, 30 years. So what's your advice as we think about reaching out to legislators, beyond the budget? Because I think the budget is certainly an exercise in priorities and how we think about funding. And, we're grateful that we're the only state in the country that's continuing the grants around, $475 million in one line item. But what advice would you give to us as we're trying to explain the system, all the different levers, to legislators who need to be experts in so many different things?
So I appreciate the question, and I appreciate the context, because Amy has already been in our office to talk about many of these issues right away. Excuse me.
Right. And I'll say that was part of your strategy was that you invited folks in to come to your office to meet you and the team. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, and that really is the way to do it, is to educate us, to give us a chance to understand the issues that you face through an organized way, through a person who can speak for you like Amy did, and will continue to. And we will, I have visited some of the facilities. I can't visit them all,
Right.
but but especially when I did Common Start, we went and toured a number of
Yep,
facilities, and including, what was interesting, we went to Hanscom Air Force Base and looked at the way that they did things.
you
And
did.
I think, Amy, you were there, right?
I was there and it was incredible to kind of when you think about the military that have invested and to have that in Massachusetts and to talk to the folks was incredible. And their family-centered approach, right? They are kind of so close with the families.
Yeah, yeah, and they did. And the reason they did it, as they explained it, was that they said, we like to think we're nice people and all that, but we're doing it because it's for the
Right.
benefit
Right.
of the mission, as they put it, the word they use, because they're in the military. It's the mission. We cannot have distracted parents.
That's
Uh,
right.
those distracted parents are protecting our country, and we've got to have them focusing on their mission and confident that their children are well cared for and receiving a preschool education that's going to give them every benefit they would get in the private side of things. And so they charged the families on a sliding scale, which
Yeah.
was interesting. So everyone could afford it based on their rank. They offered the admission, if it was available, to contractors and others who had business essentially with Hanscom, because they felt that it was a benefit that they shouldn't, hoard, that they should share with others who had some involvement with their community. And so that was interesting.
Yeah, for
And I
sure.
think that's kind of the way to do it. I'll just one example of going back to paid family medical leave. When I first met with Senator Lewis, he had this expression. We were at his office, I was sitting around the table. He said, "Teach me everything. I want to know everything, and we can't do it all in 1 hour. I get that, but I need to know everything." And that's kind of how we both approach these issues. We just want to learn and then
That
make decisions.
I have found that with both of you, and I think so often we forget like how much legislators have to know. You have people kind of come in talking about their own, especially I'm sure in education. So when you think about the committee now, and as you said, the Common Start bill, that kind of most of it, so much of the policy was included in the budget last year. So now we're thinking about implementation, which is like implementation advocacy is different than like making the case, getting the bill passed advocacy. But as you sit now kind of chairing the committee, what are the topics that are coming up for you the most when you think about the work going ahead?
But unfortunately, it's funding. Um, and
Yeah,
I know that some of you were talking about the CCFA funding, and there's a deadline coming up, and we're working with Ways and Means. We put something into the sub budget.
right.
It's in conference committee, but we've got to have some sort of expedited resolution of that because time is wasting. Not waste is the wrong word. Time is
Time
ticking,
is ticking.
ticking. That's the word. I'm going to blame it on the cold.
Yeah,
Uh, Time is ticking. Um, so we're looking into what we can do to help, but that's really what it is. We need funding to help you, and we're at a point in our with respect to our budget that we need funding for so many. We do or will be needing funding for so many things. It's competitive,
right,
and there I can't point to areas where, I mean, there are some very legitimate needs that we have, healthcare and education and transportation and all of that. So it's a question of being there, advocating for your position, reminding us of your position, because no one is going to, everyone is going to agree it's worthy. It's a
right.
question of how much we have to go around.
And when you think about the hearings, so the committee tends to have the bills bundled by topic.
Right?
And I've always, as somebody who is on the other side, testifying, I always think about, the legislators sitting there listening to hours and hours and hours of testimony from passionate people, from knowledgeable people. But as you think about kind of the committee hearings, kind of what's your style? What's most effective for you to hear? Most committees put a time limit of 3 minutes. So folks are, coming to testify. What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, we've actually been putting a time limit of 2 minutes,
Ah,
because we have so many witnesses coming in.
yep,
Which really goes to say that in addition to coming in and speaking, I really would urge you to send written testimony. Send us a
yeah,
letter. We'll read the letter. That becomes testimony. It's kept with the committee as testimony. It's public testimony. So I would refrain from using names, and especially of children, students and things like that.
right,
But send that to us, because then you can go beyond the 2 minutes. You can give us examples of how these issues affect you in a way that's not limited in time.
right. Well, and you have so many things to get through. I'm wondering if your team who is here, because we know the folks behind the especially so as a legislator, you have both committee staff and you have your legislative staff. So if I think I know Jesse's here, but if other folks are here, can you just pop on to say hello? Because I think we know how busy the elected officials are. We know how important it is to build relationships with the team. So Jessica, hi Jesse, do you just want to say hello?
Hi, yeah, I'm Jesse. I am Rep. Gordon staff director. So I'm happy to help or get you connected with Chair Gordon anytime.
And what did you do before you joined had this position?
I was staff director of public service before coming here and researcher, and then before that I was a legislative aide. So I've been with Rep. Gordon for about a little over 4 years. And before that I had kind of just graduated college.
Right, great. Oh, good morning, Sonia. You want to say hi?
Hi, sorry. Hi, I'm Sienna Chernoff. I'm one of the researchers. I've actually been on this call, I think, before, so
You're a
people,
long time listener. Yes, for sure.
so
Wow.
yeah.
And good morning. Thank you. Hi, Fiona.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Fiona Bruce Faden. I'm the research director for the Joint Committee on Education.
Great. And Eloise?
Good morning. I'm researcher for the Joint Committee on Education. It's nice to be here.
Thanks so much for all of you for joining in. Surprise coming on camera. That's what we love to do on the 9:30 call. Chairman, can you talk a little bit about kind of how you work with your team? How do they support and help you? And how often are you meeting with them?
Yeah, thank you very much, and thank you for inviting them to speak. I couldn't see on my screen who
I
was
know it's
here,
very hard.
so I didn't want to call anybody out if you weren't here.
Exactly.
And so if you could, for my staff to stay on visible so that I could see that you're still here, but because they're a little modest, and I just want to introduce them with a little more detail if I could.
Sure.
So yeah, Jessie has been with me since she graduated from college, being promoted up through the ranks. She went to Connecticut College, where she was successful there, and she's been successful in every step of the way with me and with Fiona as our research director with public service. They helped pass, especially that civil service bill that, as I said, was a problem that faced the Commonwealth for 30 years, or
Wow.
almost also. I won't go into it much, but a situation where no one was satisfied with a
Right.
system that we had in Massachusetts. But no, but it's difficult to repair it because again, you're going to take away something that somebody likes in order to get something that somebody doesn't like,
Right.
and so sometimes it's easier just to leave it be. But we didn't do that, and a lot of it was the great work of Jesse and Fiona. This was before Eloise joined, and Fiona was still with education. Um, Eloise has been a great addition as our researcher now for about a year. Eloise, has it been a year now?
Yeah.
She hit the ground running, graduate of UMass Boston, grew up in Australia, but her parents returned here when she was in high school and went to school locally and has just done great. Siona was with, as you said, she was with the committee before, so she was the one staffer that we absorbed.
Yeah.
For us, has been invaluable because she was able to explain to us some of the things that went on before in a way that we could decide whether, okay, that sounds good, we'll continue in that direction, or maybe we can do something a little different or so. But it's good to be grounded in with the institutional memory. No, I lost it. Where'd that microphone thing go?
You did it.
Okay, there it is. Of the committee, and she has been accepted. I'll continue to brag about this on her behalf to the University of Pennsylvania Law School, to UPenn for September. So she'll be leaving us the beginning
Wow.
of August to go to law school.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. And so,
And
as you
one last thing.
oh, sorry.
One last thing.
Yeah.
Fiona just graduated with her master's in it's a public administration. Public administration, right?
Public policy.
Public
Oh, wow.
policy. And Jessie is about to graduate with her master's is it public administration or public policy?
Public policy.
The same thing. I have an MPA. It's
Both
all
from
the same.
Northeastern. All right, I'm done bragging. Go ahead.
That's wonderful. Well, I think that's really important and really a mark of your leadership, to kind of have this incredible team. And you're always welcome in the 9:30 call. We know we often have staff listening in, which has been great. So as we're wrapping up, if 9:30 callers, please add some appreciation in chat for Chairman Gordon. I think, is anyone taking on a new challenge? We appreciate your kind of strategic thinking about how to get things done. All of your previous experience in getting bills passed, which we know was not easy, like 6,000 bills passed, and how that getting it over the finish line is a huge deal. And then all these critical, important issues for children and families. As we close up and people are adding appreciation in the chat, what advice do you have for us as advocates? So you've told us to come meet with you. You've told us to get to know our legislators. What else do we need to know?
Yeah, continue through, especially through your representatives, to communicate with on your priorities. I think we basically would have an understanding because we're members of the community.
Yep.
You don't have to have children to understand the challenges of families with children. You don't have to own a business to understand the challenges, but that you face. But but you need to, you should continue to explain those challenges because they should remain primary on our focus as we get together to decide policies, what bills are going to get voted on, are going to come to the top to get voted on, but especially budget time and supplemental budget time, where do we need to put our money? And we need
Yep.
to hear from you.
Well, thank you so much. It was also, we know, so on the call, we have early educators, we have directors, we have family child care providers, we have funders, we have staff from EEC, we have so many different folks. We had over 80 people at our height this morning, so it was great to have you on. Please come back anytime and please consider us a resource. As I said to you when we met, if you have a question or you're hearing things from constituents or other members, we're happy to help. Get some more information, do some homework, give you some context, anything that we can do to help. And we just so appreciate your leadership and are thrilled to be working with you this legislative session.
Thank you. Thank you. We're easy to find. My email is my name, kenneth.gordon@mahouse.gov, or any of my staff's name as well. So, stay in touch with us and, individually, or when it's really an issue, then organize through Amy or someone else from your group. But what you're
Yeah.
doing is important.
Thank you so much, Cher. And thank you to the team. I'm so glad you had the chance to say hello and introduce yourself. We appreciate that. We will be back tomorrow morning at 9:30, which is sharing the mic. So this is a no speaker agenda. If folks have questions, announcements, reflections, any news you want to share, we'll be back tomorrow morning at 9:30. Have a great day, even though it feels a little fallish today. That's your weather report. Sports updates will be suspended until the Red Sox really get on a streak. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.